Hi there, I'm Anna Crowley and I'm presenting the marbled crayfish and its effects on the ecosystem. I decided to do this as a project because I keep crayfish as pets and I included some pictures on the last slide if you're interested. And just as a side note, I'm just getting over the flu, so I apologize if my voice doesn't sound amazing. Marbled crayfish were originally created in Germany in a lab while they were in search of a sustainable food source. The scientists accidentally created a crayfish that can reproduce asexually, and the entirety of the species is female. They somehow escaped the lab and have been slowly traveling across the world, both on their own and via human transport. They're especially concentrated in Europe and Africa. Somehow they made it to Japan and Florida, most likely taken by humans. The scientific name for a marbled crayfish is Procambrus virginalis. The marbled crayfish has a patchy pattern that, in my opinion, doesn't look much like marble, but they can be a few different colors, including blue, orange, yellow, and brown. And as I mentioned earlier, they can reproduce asexually, so they tend to have clutches of young every 6 or so months, and they can lay 400 to 1,000 eggs at a time. However, crayfish are cannibalistic, so they eat their young, and the young will eat each other, so typically only between 50 to 200 survive. Crayfish are mostly scavengers, so in the absolute best case scenario, the environment is simply getting more help cleaning up dead organisms. However, crayfish are incredibly aggressive and are completely capable of eating anything they can actually catch in their tiny claws. Mostly this includes plants, fish brood, small fish, and worms. And the diagram I have here is showing the food chain of another invasive species of crayfish, the rusty crayfish. But the story is pretty much the same with the marbled crayfish. Larger fish will eat the crayfish, and the crayfish will eat whatever they can catch. However, the marbled crayfish, just like the rusty crayfish, is more aggressive than the native crayfish. So it can very well eat more organisms than the native crayfish, and the marbled crayfish is perfectly capable of starving the native crayfish of its resources, effectively kicking it out of its own habitat. With this population boom of a new species of crayfish, a new fishing industry has blossomed, especially in Madagascar. However, there is already evidence of overfishing. The effects of this overfishing are unknown, mostly because the effects of the presence of the marbled crayfish in general are still unknown, but for now, townspeople can fish for them in large numbers and sell them for food or feed for animals. So these are my pet crayfish. I don't own a marbled crayfish, mostly because I wouldn't know what to do with 500 babies every 6 months. Marbled crayfish are legal to own in North Carolina, but not in all states in the United States, and you definitely can't release them into the wild because they're a very invasive species. The two species of crayfish that I own are called Procambrus alini and Procambrus clarkii. I've owned two vanilla lobsters, the white ones, one ghost crayfish, which is what the multicolored one is called, a blue crayfish, and an orange crayfish. Unfortunately, since they will eat each other, they have to be kept in separate tanks, so I haven't owned more than two at a time, and the ones I'm currently keeping are Sherman and Hubert. Thanks for watching.